Urban renewal and reconstruction have always been deeply intertwined with the socio-political and economic currents of their time, reflecting broader transnational influences that shaped modern cities throughout the 20th century. The roots of urban renewal can be traced back to the modernist visions that emerged in the early decades of the century when architects and planners like Walter Gropius and Le Corbusier sought to redefine urban landscapes. Their ideas, which emphasized high-rise towers, functional zoning, and large-scale redevelopment, were not merely aesthetic choices. They represented a radical rethinking of how cities could function in an increasingly industrialized world. Le Corbusier's audacious Plan Voisin, which proposed the demolition of central Paris to make way for a grid of towers, epitomized this vision of a machine-like urban order, where efficiency and modernity reigned supreme. In contrast, Frank Lloyd Wright's Broadacre City offered a counter-narrative, emphasizing a decentralized, automobile-centric approach to urban living. Wright's vision was rooted in the belief that cities should expand outward, allowing individuals to inhabit spaces that reflected their personal autonomy and connection to nature. This ideological schism between centralized modernism and decentralized suburbanism would set the stage for the urban renewal debates that would unfold later in the century. The aftermath of World War II dramatically altered the urban landscape as the war catalyzed industrial production and migration, creating a pressing need for housing and infrastructure. The Lanham Act of 1940 exemplified this shift, facilitating large-scale experimental housing projects to accommodate the influx of workers in war industries. Cities like Detroit, Richmond, and Vanport experienced rapid development, but these initiatives often fell short of their goals, leading to overcrowded and inadequate living conditions. Moreover, the war exacerbated racial segregation, as black workers were frequently excluded from housing opportunities and relegated to substandard accommodations. The racial tensions that simmered in industrial centers erupted into violence, as seen in the riots of 1943, underscoring the deep-seated inequalities that urban renewal would later grapple with. The post-war era heralded the rise of federally backed urban renewal programs in the United States, with the Housing Act of 1949 marking a significant turning point. This legislation aimed to eradicate slums and facilitate large-scale redevelopment, promising a decent home and suitable living environment for every American family. However, the implementation of these programs often led to the displacement of low-income communities, particularly those comprised of racial minorities. The Housing Act of 1954 expanded the scope of urban renewal, allowing for rehabilitation alongside clearance, but still failing to adequately address the needs of displaced residents. Nationally, over 1 million people were uprooted by urban renewal projects, with 2/3 of them being people of color. This stark reality revealed the darker side of urban renewal, where the promise of modernization came at the cost of community and belonging. The term blight, borrowed from the field of plant pathology, became a central justification for urban renewal efforts. Planners and policymakers employed this language to frame neighborhoods deemed undesirable as threats to urban stability. Areas with high concentrations of immigrants and minorities were often labeled as blighted, reinforcing negative stereotypes and justifying their clearance. Publications like Life magazine perpetuated these narratives, depicting slums as breeding grounds for crime and social decay. The legal framework surrounding urban renewal was equally complicit, with landmark cases like Berman v. Parker, 1954, affirming the right of cities to seize private property for redevelopment, regardless of the blighted condition of individual properties. Justice William O. Douglas's assertion that the nation's capital should be beautiful as well as sanitary linked urban renewal to broader aesthetic and economic goals, further entrenching the notion that urban spaces could be reshaped to serve a vision of progress. Cities like Washington, D.C., underwent dramatic transformations as a result of urban renewal initiatives. The Southwest Washington Renewal Project, which cleared 99% of the neighborhood's structures, replaced them with modernist high-rises and commercial spaces. While these developments aimed to revitalize the city, they often marginalized the very communities they displaced. Out of the 5,900 new housing units built in Southwest D.C., a mere 310 were affordable for former residents, forcing many families into public housing or to relocate far from their established neighborhoods. Critics like James Baldwin articulated the profound injustices of urban renewal, coining the term Negro removal to highlight its disproportionate impact on Black communities. By the 1960s and 70s, the tide began to turn against urban renewal as opposition mounted. Residents organized against freeway projects that threatened to obliterate their neighborhoods, leading to what became known as freeway revolts. Activists, architects, and planners began advocating for participatory approaches to urban development, emphasizing the importance of grassroots involvement. Figures like Jane Jacobs emerged as vocal proponents of neighborhood-centric planning, challenging the top-down strategies that had characterized urban renewal. The Housing and Community Development Act of 1974 signaled a shift away from the urban renewal paradigm, redirecting federal support toward community-driven initiatives. Despite its controversial legacy, urban renewal has left an indelible mark on the modern city. The physical transformations it wrought can still be seen in urban landscapes, while the policy tools it introduced, such as eminent domain, continue to shape urban development. The reassessment of figures like Robert Moses and Jane Jacobs in contemporary discourse reflects ongoing debates about the role of planning in shaping urban environments. In places like China, large-scale urban renewal continues to provoke similar questions about displacement, economic growth, and the future of urban living. As we navigate the complexities of urban development today, the lessons of the past remain vital, reminding us that the pursuit of progress must be balanced with a commitment to equity and community. The question remains, do we still have, want, or need urban renewal today? The challenges of the present compel us to reflect on these legacies as we envision the cities of tomorrow.